You waiting? I can see that we're streaming live. Are we all okay? Yep. Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Human Resources Committee meeting. I'm in the chair just for item number 1, which is to appoint the chairman for the coming 12-month period. Do I have any nominations for chair? Councillor Warren Howells.
I'd like to propose Councillor Richard Voss to be chair.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I second it.
Do I have any other nominees? No, in which case, can I just have a show of hands to show that we're all happy that Councillor Voss be elected as chair for the coming 12-month period? Thank you. In which case, I'll pass over to Councillor Voss to continue. I'm just going to mute and come off video, but I'll just continue to observe for a while because it's new to me, this, so it's a good learning practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for voting for me. Can we move to the appointment of a deputy chair? And I would like to nominate Councillor Victoria Alcock. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dowling, you seconding? Thank you. So Councillor Dowling is seconding. Do we have anyone else who'd like to put their name forward as deputy chair? No. So all those in favour, we just raise our hands, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you for that, Councillor Alcock. Look forward to the next year with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Voss.
Thank you. Okay, so if we move on, if we can accept any apologies for absence. Town Clerk, I think we have one from Councillor Wall.
We have indeed.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest for the items on the agenda? No. To receive any written requests for dispensation for disclosable pecuniary interest, if there are any? None of those. Point 5, to grant any request for dispensation as appropriate. No. And finally, any members of the public participating on matters under which the council has control or is a consultative body? And I think as far as we're aware, there is nobody. So if we move on to the point 7, to approve the open minutes of the HR committee meeting, which was held on the 18th of February 2020, a long while back, I know. So does anybody have any comments? That approved? If everyone could just perhaps just raise their hands. We're few in number, so we don't have to go to the blue virtual hand. So those are approved.
Mr. Chairman, may I have permission, please, then, to append your virtual signature?
You do indeed.
Thank you.
Please make it legible.
Yeah.
For a change.
Thank you very much. You're right. Okay, so I think we're now going to move to the papers from the Town Clerk's open report, pages 1 to 7, appendices 8 to 25, and there are some confidential pages as well, which we can look at later. So, Town Clerk, your open report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually don't think I have very much more to add. I think the report that I've written is obviously self-explanatory, but is also pretty thorough. One thing that I have absolutely 100% found doing this whole exercise, if this is only going to work, this new committee structure is only going to work if members really do work with the officers and make sure that the papers are read well in advance of any committee meeting. It's no good coming to the meeting just having read them, because it's, as you'll see how I think it can work, is the officer who's written that particular part of that report may not be the clerk that is in attendance at that particular committee meeting, because it's going to be shared. So if, for example, and I put it in here, if you want to talk about markets, then talking to Charles Wilson, for example, who may be clerking that night, he wouldn't have a clue, because that's always been dealt with and will continue to be dealt with by Lisa. So we will, whenever we write anything, we'll actually identify the officer that has put that report together. So if you have a question, you would contact that clerk to say, how many traders are there on the market? She would know. And if we would give you a written response to that as well. And so presumably then the clerk would pick that up, the minutes clerk would pick that up. But it really is very, very vital. Now, in terms of the Human Resources Committee, which is to be renamed the Personnel Committee, that was generally straightforward in terms of transferring the terms and conditions from one, sorry, the remit from one to another, with the exception of Town Hall Wellbeing has come into the Personnel Committee, i.e. are offices up to snuff, are the cemetery facilities for the men all right? You know, there are lots of things that used to go to general purposes and then went to the subcommittee, Town Hall Income, Facilities and Wellbeing, are now coming here. So that's really the one thing that stuck in my mind that is different to what it was.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Clark. We can come back. Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I you know, read through the terms of reference, so there is very little change to it to how it was, apart from that point you did mention. The only thing I would like to have, I don't know whether it needs adding in or whether it can be done on an ad hoc basis, is if, say, the chair going through the agenda with the clerk comes up with a point that we know from experience is going to cause quite a lengthy debate, quite a lot of questions, is it possible to have it in there that we could have both clerks present? As much as you try to think of the ideas you have before the meeting, the whole point of debate is that other ideas come out in it. Now, it could be that if there is going to be a subject, whether in this committee or any committee, but I'd rather cover all of them, that is going to cause a contentious debate, it to me makes sense to have both clerks who are experienced there to help answer the questions that could come up.
Okay, Town Clerk, do you have a view on that, or do you want
Yes,
anyone else?
I would seriously recommend that didn't happen. The whole idea is that there is one clerk. It's evening working, that is more money. I mean, yes, it can, but you might find that there are 4 clerks that you need there at the meeting. And that's why I'm saying it is absolutely vital that the councillors work with the officers so that you don't need so many officers attending one meeting. It's not cost effective. However, I do agree with you that if we know it's going to be a contentious issue, then yes, then obviously it would make sense that I'm there or Phil is there or one of us are there. Certainly with budgeting, then Phil has said, you know, you would attend and we would put those things first on the agenda. But to try and work with more than one clerk is actually going to sort of, you know, really, because it's evening working. We've been working all day, and then to expect them more than one to come in for another meeting. So if you think it's contentious, or if you think I'm not happy with this one, then please let us know in advance so that A, we could answer any questions, but of course debate arises and things come out that, you know, it just does, it happens, doesn't it? I fully appreciate it. But I think to have all the clerks standing by, it's not so bad on Zoom, is it? You know, when we're virtual, everybody's at home and you've spoken to them and then they go off and have a glass of wine. If we've got to come back into the building, which will happen in future, then it's really, I think it's a bit unfair on the current workforce.
I'm right in thinking, am I, Clark, that papers generally get issued on the Wednesday prior to a meeting? Sorry, just to
legally, you have to have them 3 working days before the meeting, which does not include the day of the meeting and the day of dispatch. So actually you get them 5 days in advance.
Right. So on that basis, you've got, in fairness, there's a lot of these meetings happening. We're all involved in many other things. But if we did have any key issues, we should try to discipline ourselves to getting back to the clerks on the Monday, so we could get a response possibly by the Tuesday. So we've got all day Tuesday to absorb, all day Wednesday. So if it was going to develop into something contentious, seriously so, everybody's prepared. And I think that's the point that the clerk's making about reading the paperwork. And the more we put into it, and we are developing all our committees and all our activities within the town hall, the more complex, but also the more satisfying it will become when we do put all that extra effort and these are all rounded off. So I think you're quite right. But in extremis, if we have to have more than one clerk, so be it. But we ought to avoid it wherever possible. Okay, any other comments there on your open report? It's a very detailed open report through job descriptions, commentary on grading remuneration, all of that and more. And also, I see there's quite a lot on a subject we talked about at finance, I think possibly, about carrying over of holidays. And I think that's relevant as well to a discussion we had before. So is everyone happy with that?
Can we take
yeah. Yes, Councillor Alcock.
Sorry, Councillor Voss, we're taking each item as it comes. Is that
well? I'm looking to the town clerk to say whether she feels we ought to need to discuss them or we can accept them broadly. What do we want to do?
I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost, to be honest. Have we finalised terms of reference? I mean, have we moved on?
Well, sorry, do we want to have any more discussions on term of reference?
Well, we need to vote on it.
Well, I think that we're reviewing them because we aren't finalising them until the July council meeting, when they're going to be, well, we're not even finalising them there, are we? We're going to get a first full draft there for final voting. Am I right, in September?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are. There's an interim review that's going to the next town council meeting. But the reason why they're all coming to these committees is that the feedback that I'm getting from committees will feed in to the meeting on the 28th. I have had a meeting with the staff yesterday, and we went through all the terms of reference, all of them. And in principle, they're very happy. There were one or two very minor tweaks, which were actually almost like typos. And it was the opportunity, because you'll see in these terms of reference, I've allocated a lead officer against each term, and it was their opportunity to shout their corner and say, no, I don't agree, or yes, I do agree. And there was very, very, very little dissension at all. I think in principle, they agree with it. They think it will work. It's a bit getting your head around it, because it's not a question of saying GP is now community services or Maryland protocol is now heritage and events. It's not. They're completely different. And I think it's going to be quite difficult for them to I'm the GP clerk and now I'm not. What does it mean? But it's been explained, and as I say, that there has been very little dissension. I think it's been received as a suck it and see.
Yeah, and there's no reason, even when we agree and finalise them in September, that is an agreement with a view to keep on updating and reviewing and refining them as well, I think.
We always do.
Yeah. Councillor Dowling.
Yeah, I've read these papers thoroughly, and I think it's a fine job. Personally, I think we should accept these and move on to the next item.
Okay, so we are where we are. They're not the finalised papers, but I'm happy to move on if the clerk and other members of the committee are. Okay.
Yes, I'm very happy with these papers, with these terms of reference.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Thank you, Councillor Alcock. Do you want to pick up on the points as we move along? The job description, town clerk, is there any comments on there, members of the committee? Yes, Councillor Alcock.
It's me. Not really, apart from that very final sentence is consultation will be key. although all these committees have changed, actually the job descriptions of each officer need not necessarily change too much, because, as I say, there's what we did before was say, right, here's GP, and now I need to employ an officer to service that committee. And now I have an officer and I can't neatly fit it in. But actually their skill set is still constant. It's why they will be feeding into a lot of committees rather than just having one. So at the moment, I think the job descriptions remain pretty much constant.
Councillor Alcock?
Yes, I agree that the job descriptions were accurate. Is there anything coming up, Town Clerk, through you, Chair, if I may, of officers who may wish to change their job description with additional training, with additional work that they wish to take on? Is there anything like that you've had come back through your team meeting that maybe we should be aware of now?
Yes.
As an idea.
Yeah, I think there will. For example, it's pretty pointless giving IT to every single member of the staff, because there's one that excels at IT and website development, etc., etc. So you'd automatically, from everybody, put that to her, rather than as it was at the moment, as everybody's got to sort of have a bit of a clue. This new structure is definitely going to play to the strengths of the people, because we can just take away or give what they're good at. Yeah. And if they're poor at it, we'll take it to you and give it to you, and it won't matter, because it's still an admin grade. There's nobody, I think, that will ever come back and say, oh, you know, I need regrading, because it's still admin. It's just saying, you're very good at that, so I'm going to give that to you. So there'll be tweaks, but generally we employed the people before for that skill set, and it's just disseminated rather than in a block.
Got it.
Okay,
Councillor Onehouse, did you want to? No, I saw a notional finger there. Okay, so moving on from job descriptions, we're happy with where we are on that part of the open report. Grading, remuneration and terms of employment. There's quite a decent sized section on that. Anybody have any comments thereon? Town Clerk, is there anything you'd like to point out? No, it's all pretty clear. Okay, let's move on, if we may, to statutory leave. And as I said before, there was a discussion we had at a previous meeting about the carrying forward of holidays because of lockdown and restrictions. So just to sum that up, could you please, Town Clerk? As I understand it, they are now entitled and can carry up to 4 weeks holiday forward.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years.
Providing it's because of COVID-19.
Right.
So if for some reason nobody's been able to take their holiday because of COVID-19, not because they're in lockdown or you know, they can't go away on holiday, that's not what it's all about. It's if they have to work, like key workers, then they would be entitled to, and I'm only just putting that in the report for you to know that that is the legislation that has changed. I don't think it's going to affect any of your members of staff, any.
You're pretty confident, I'm right saying, that the holidays can be managed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about to cancel my holiday to Leicester.
Exotic, Councillor Darling, exotic. Okay, I don't think there's any restriction going into Leicester, by the way. I think it's leaving Leicester that's the problem.
Yeah.
So is there any other comments, or we can accept that and close down on the open report? Okay, thank you very much. So we've got 8.1 in terms of reference we've talked about, 8.2 job descriptions, 8.3 grading remuneration, and then we've gone to 8.4, we've discussed on that. Coming to 8.5, is it appropriate now, Town Clerk, that we go confidential?
I would recommend that because there is confidential named members of staff being discussed here.
Okay, so if we can go confidential, that means that we have to close down YouTube and Facebook. You're doing that, are you, Town Clerk?
I will, thank you.
Okay, let's hold on a minute then until that's done.